Welcome to Canadian Coffee House Crime. My name is Catherine. Today's case takes us to Kamloops BC as we delve into the mystery that is called the Kamloops Triangle. Kamloops is a city in south central British Columbia. The city was incorporated in 1893 with a population of around 100,000 people. Kamloops welcomes around 2 million visitors each year. Kamloops is an award-winning wine region with a climate perfect for growing grapes. It is home to 4 award-winning wineries: Harper's Trail, Monte Creek Ranch, Privado, and Sagewood. Kamloops has over 120 acres of wine territory. With 100 lakes within an hour's drive, Kamloops has some of the best freshwater fishing in North America. Kamloops has the highest number of golf courses per capita in Canada. The Kamloops Rotary Skate Park at MacArthur Island Park is one of Canada's largest skateboard parks, and Kamloops was a filming location for the Netflix series Lost in Space. The Kamloops Triangle is considered to be located within the interior plateau of southern BC. Many legend stories have been told by the indigenous people in the area for decades, including 30-foot cave-dwelling giants who lived in the mountains of the Okanagan and Upper Thompsons until the late 1800s. They could be recognized at a great distance by their strong and peculiar odor, and even their tracks and branches of trees which they have touched while passing smell for a long time after they have gone by. Dwarves were said to have once been prevalent in many parts of the country, but were seldom seen by the late 19th century. They are said to be 2 feet tall and were supposed to be gifted with great magic. The ancient red ochre paintings that adorn the cliffs of the Stein River Valley was apparently made by the Little People. Another man-like entity said to haunt the wilderness of the BC interior, Shuswap medicine men would often adopt this entity as their guardian spirit, which was a dangerous guardian for a person to have. It was so powerful that it would frequently make the persons who possess it insane and transform them into cannibals. One shaman was found eating bodies in a graveyard. The people took him away, but he could not be restrained from returning. He was killed in 1859. Female witches used to practice their black arts throughout the region. Indians would sometimes see these graceful figures dancing atop cliffs and among the shores of certain rivers. A monster of the Fraser Canyon is like a ghost that chases people. The black lizard will follow your tracks, and in the nighttime will crawl into your anus and eat your intestines. Devil's Lake, set in the Lillooet Mountains west of the Fraser Canyon between the towns of Lytton and Lillooet, a lake is situated in which strange mysteries may be seen, such as logs crossing the lake with dogs running backward and forward on them, canoes crossing without occupants, and ice changing into people who run along the shore, all of which vanish. There is an old woman with long hair floating around the lake on a log chanting strange songs, herds of goats turning into stone, young maidens dying while swimming, and a bull with a dog on its head attempting to swim the lake and disappearing about halfway across. Native people blacken their faces when passing by the lake in order to avoid being recognized by the devil who lives in the lake. The lake that never freezes, another cursed lake called Seton Lake in the mountains, that has never been known to freeze over no matter how cold the weather gets. This is also an area where a number of hikers and residents vanish without a trace. There are a few reasons that make these disappearances so mysterious, like tracking dogs that are unable to follow a scent at the scene of the disappearance. Either blizzards, fog, rain, snow, hail, dust storms, and freezing cold or hot temperatures often pick up suddenly and unexpectedly following the victim's disappearance, just before the initial search and rescue effort. Also, the body of the missing person is discovered in an area that has been previously searched. Sometimes the location of the recovery has been searched dozens of times. Searchers may have taken the same trail hundreds of times over the week, hiking to where they believe the victim was located. One day of a search, a tree had fallen across the path, and a young victim was found lying on it. Nobody could explain this scenario. Sometimes there are missing clothes or shoes, cases in which the missing person, upon being rescued, cannot recall the circumstances of his disappearance or the period preceding his discovery, and the inexplicable malfunctioning of compasses and other equipment. I will describe to you a handful of these mysterious vanishes. The first odd disappearance to occur in the British Columbia Triangle is that of a Dutch immigrant named Herman Jerus, who came to Canada in 1951 and settled in the city of Kamloops. On the morning of Sunday, November 10, 1957, only a week after attaining his Canadian citizenship, 50-year-old Jerus went hunting with his friend and fellow Dutchman Kees Bulk. The hunters decided to try their luck at the Mont Lake, a small body of water situated about 40 kilometers southeast of Kamloops, nestled in a cluster of low mountains called the Mont Hills. During their hunting trip, they decided to go their separate ways and agreed to meet back at their vehicle at noon for lunch. Herman failed to show. Kees headed to the point at which he had last seen Herman and fired 3 shots into the air with his rifle. He heard 3 answering shots in the distance, but was unable to determine the location from which they sounded. Kees Bulk decided to alert the RCMP. 40 experienced woodsmen went looking for the missing hunter, along with RCMP dogs and several private pilots from Kamloops, but failed to uncover any clues even though the area had been covered several times. 3 years after the Dutchman's disappearance, a party of Kamloops hunters discovered a skeleton and a rusted rifle on the shores of the Ernest Lake. Police identified the body as that of Herman. The corpse was discovered only 5.5 miles from the hunter's last known location. On the afternoon of July 3, 1960, a British Columbia man named Maurice Masters, along with his wife and 20-month-old daughter Betty Jean, set out on a trip to Red Lake. Red Lake boasted a tiny logging community comprised of 2 lumber mills, a post office, a general store, and a handful of residents. Masters and his wife headed into the post office at Red Lake. They left little Betty Jean outside with 2 local playmates. About an hour after sunset, they came out of the post office and found that Betty Jean was missing. The toddler's playmates could give no clue as to where the baby had gone. A rescue party started a search. An RCMP tracking dog was brought to the site of the disappearance, failed to pick up a scent. Over 60 experienced woodsmen were combing the logging roads and forests for any sign of the missing baby. They believe she may have been taken by a wild animal or carried off by someone. She has never been found. In June 1960, a 24-year-old Hungarian immigrant named Gabriel Pascali took a job as a shepherd on the slopes of Mount Baldy, which comprised of 200 head of sheep. He had an old cabin which was stocked with fuel, non-perishable food, various supplies, and a rifle. 2 months later, his boss checked up on him and he was fine. A couple of weeks later, he went back and found him missing. The Hungarian was nowhere to be seen, nor were there any traces of his footprints in the 2 inches of snow in the vicinity. Finding no sign of Pascali, Anderson headed to Kamloops and reported his disappearance to the RCMP. The Mounties and their volunteers scoured the mountain for 4 days but failed to uncover any evidence indicating the fate of Gabriel Pascali. On Monday, November 19, 1962, Wallace Mah went on a hunting trip with a 40-year-old Shuswap Indian named Fred Basco. The hunters decided to try their luck in Yale, British Columbia. When they reached a point about 5 miles from town, the hunters built a fire by the side of the road. Fred went ahead into the forest and decided to follow some fresh deer tracks. Mah stayed with the fire. After Fred made his way south to the highway, Fred waited for Wallace, but he never showed up. Fred notified the RCMP. A handful of RCMP officers and local lumberjacks headed up the logging road to search for Wallace. They found the remains of his campfire and found 2 pairs of boot tracks leading away from the ashes into the woods. One of them were Wallace's. The search and rescue team followed Wallace's tracks for some time before losing the trail. The RCMP officers who had participated in the operation informed the press that it was their belief that Wallace had likely died after falling over one of the many cliffs of the rugged stretch of wilderness. Whatever the case, Wallace's body was never recovered, and his fate remains a mystery to this day. All of the mysteries surrounding Green Lake, including many UFO sightings. The most disturbing is the disappearance of Clancy OBrien, a 9-year-old resident of North Vancouver, who vanished without a trace on the afternoon of Saturday, August 20th, 1966. Clancy and his 6-year-old brother Tommy accompanied 2 of their cousins, 15-year-old Johnny Livingston and 7-year-old Alan DeVette Jr., on an excursion to Olson's Butte, a hill located about a mile northwest of the ranch, from which all of Green Lake can be seen through the trees. At about 2:30 in the afternoon, Clancy left the group, planning to return to his grandfather's house to get hot dogs. When their cousin failed to return after 2 hours, the boys headed back down the well-beaten path to the ranch house. Clancy, they learned, was not at their grandfather's house, nor had any of the adults seen him since the boys first left for Olson's Butte. Horseback riders and search parties failed to find any sign of the missing 9-year-old on the trail from the ranch to Olson's Butte. The RCMP pressed 2 local bush pilots into service. They brought in a tracking dog to the scene, marking the areas they covered with red ribbons. 13 days after Clancy's disappearance, the RCMP decided to abandon the search. Police officials described the case as uncanny, baffled that the enormous search and rescue operation they coordinated had yielded so few clues as to the fate of the missing boy. To this day, the RCMP considers the disappearance of Clancy OBrien an open case. On July 9, 2002, Bryan Fanon traveled from Montreal to Vancouver. The 35-year-old engineer was an experienced hiker and mountain climber, and informed the tour operator that he planned to do some hiking during his stay in Whistler. Bryan Fanon departed his hostel, leaving his passport, tent, and sleeping bag behind, and informing one of the roommates that he was going to climb a peak and might not return until the following day. When Bryan Fanon failed to show by 3 p.m. on July 15th, they reported him missing to the RCMP. The Mounties decided to search for Bryan Fanon on July 17th after they confirmed that his family had not heard from him. He was never found. Rachel Bagnell and Jonathan Jett. On the morning of September 4th, 2010, Jonathan picked up Rachel from her sister's residence in his Toyota Echo and headed to the Valentine Lake trailhead at the southern base of Saxifrage Mountain, parking their car near a remote subdivision at the Lillooet First Nation on the side of an obscure logging trail called the Spetch Creek Forest Service Road. From there, the couple presumably exited the vehicle and began their 5-hour hike to Valentine Lake. The extended weekend came and went without any communication between the couple and their families. 2 days later, the Mounties tasked with investigating the missing persons report discovered Jonathan's vehicle parked about a kilometer up Spetch Creek Forest Service Road. The RCMP brought bloodhounds to the site of the abandoned vehicle. Bizarrely, the tracking dogs did not pick up a scent. It was expressed that if Jonathan and Rachel had become lost in the mountains or on the trail to Valentine Lake, they would have easily found their way back to civilization. People suspect that the couple fell victim to foul play, and it was expressed that whatever befell Jonathan and Rachel happened at the beginning or the end of their trip. To this day, no shred of evidence connected with the disappearance of Jonathan Jett and Rachel Bagnell has ever been found. On June 4th, 2011, an experienced, physically fit 55-year-old Métis outdoorsman named Darcy Bryan Turner headed into the Stein River Valley on a vision quest. He arranged for a friend to pick him up on June 19th. He was wearing a blue and black jacket, an orange t-shirt, khaki pants, a blue-gray baseball cap, and hiking boots, and was believed to have been carrying a blue backpack to which a sleeping bag and a blue tarp were attached. When Darcy Bryan Turner failed to appear at the appointed rendezvous on June 19th, the friend who had agreed to pick him up reported his disappearance to the RCMP. The 6-day manhunt was supplemented by 2 helicopters, a search dog team, and members of the Lytton First Nation. To this day, the fate of Darcy Bryan Turner remains a mystery. On the evening of Saturday, March 17th, 2012, when the ski season was beginning to wind down, David Christian and a few of his friends went out for food and drinks at Merlin's Bar and Grill, located at the base of Blackcomb Mountain at Whistler's Upper Village. At 11:30 that evening, David bid his friends goodnight and left the bar. At 2:30 a.m., Christian sent a text to one of his friends. The contents of the text has never been disclosed, although police have stated that it indicates that Christian was still alive at the time the message was sent, and was reported missing on Monday morning when he did not show up for work. Whistler RCMP used tracking dogs, helicopters, search and rescue volunteers, and the Whistler Blackcomb Ski Patrol in their subsequent search for the missing Irishman. An anonymous sportsman found the Irishman's blue skater shoes lying on the 15th green at the Fairmont Chateau Whistler Golf Club. The Mounties discovered Christian's lifeless body floating face down in Horstman Creek. There likely appeared to be no signs of foul play. A subsequent autopsy determined that the 27-year-old had likely died of hypothermia. Police suspect that Christian had become disoriented on his way back from the bar, boarded the wrong bus, took the wrong trail, and removed his shoes before wandering into Horstman Creek. On Friday, June 5th, 2015, 20-year-old Sagu drove east with a few friends up to the Fraser Valley and into Chilliwack Lake Provincial Park. The friends were planning to spend the day hiking in Lindeman Green Drop Trail, a moderately difficult 3.5-kilometer path through the old-growth cedar, fir, and hemlock forest. The trail begins beside a parking lot off the Chilliwack Lake Road and follows a stream called Post Creek north to the beautiful turquoise Lindeman Lake. Sagu decided to jog ahead of his friends up the trail. When his friends arrived at Lindeman Lake, the 20-year-old was nowhere to be seen. Sagu's companions searched the lake's vicinity and the trail from the parking lot for the missing friend, but were unable to find any trace of him. A search and rescue team from the nearby city of Chilliwack arrived at Lindeman Lake within a few hours and searched the area. While flying over the trail from Lindeman Lake to Green Drop Lake, a helicopter spotted an inanimate human body lying in a graded boulder field a good distance from the trail. The body proved to be the corpse of Sukhjit Sagu. The circumstances of the disappearance was deemed highly unusual, as he was found away from the missing point from his friends, far away from the lake and any trail. Sagu's injuries seemed consistent with a fall. On Sunday, August 14th, 2016, 50-year-old Gordon Sagu decided to hike to the Cheam Range just east of Chilliwack with his friend Cheryl Boudet and another hiker. During the hike, Sagu pulled ahead of the rest of the group, telling his companions that he wanted to summit another peak alone, and promising to meet them at a prearranged rendezvous location before returning with them to the trailhead. Both hikers later spotted Sagu in the distance atop another peak, and one of them later watched him begin his descent down the mountain, laden with 3 liters of water in his backpack. When the trail runner did not show up at the rendezvous location at the end of the day, Boudet and her companion alerted the RCMP in Chilliwack. The Chilliwack Search and Rescue Squad, Upper Fraser Valley RCMP officers, and a team of tracking dogs headed to the site of Sagu's disappearance and began to comb the mountainside for the missing hiker. Despite their subsequent efforts, no trace of Gordon Sagu has ever been found, and his ultimate fate remains a mystery. On the evening of Thursday, November 22, 2017, Allison Raspa went for drinks with some friends at the Three Below restaurant and lounge in downtown Whistler. At 11:30 p.m., after a few hours of socializing, Raspa decided to head home. Her friends would later tell police that she was not intoxicated at the time of her departure. Raspa caught a bus which dropped her off at the location of Lake Placid Road and the Sea to Sky Highway in a district called Whistler Creek, located about 5 kilometers southwest of the bar. Several hours later, at 1:15 a.m., Raspa sent a text to a friend in which she declared that she was lost. The temperature in Whistler at the time was about 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. When Allison Raspa did not show up for work on Friday morning, her friends went to her room to check on her. Finding that she was missing, they reported her disappearance to the local RCMP. The Mounties tracked Raspa's cell phone and found it lying in Alpha Lake Park, a small green area and lakeside beach located 1 block southwest of the missing woman's last known location, at the edge of the woods. Police searched the area surrounding Alpha Lake and found the Australian's backpack and wallet in a field. Earlier that morning, police later learned a passerby had found Allison's jacket lying in the same field in which her wallet and backpack were found. Considering that Raspa appeared to have been discarding her clothing and accessories on the night of her disappearance, the RCMP theorized that the 25-year-old had developed hypothermia, a dangerous drop in body temperature which can cause disorientation and confusion. People who suffer from moderate to severe hypothermia sometimes undress, overcome by a paradoxical sense of extreme warmth. Suspecting that a hypothermic Raspa may have wandered into Alpha Lake in her delirium, the police searched the water thoroughly, employing both divers and sonar scanners in their effort to locate and recover her body. The operation proved fruitless. On the evening of Friday, March 16, 2018, nearly 4 months after Raspa's disappearance, a local resident stumbled upon the 25-year-old's half-frozen corpse floating in the water at the northern edge of Alpha Lake, an area that the RCMP had thoroughly searched. Ben Tyner, 32 years old, last seen January 26, 2019. Ben, a working cowboy, disappeared from the Merritt area after riding into the hills to look for cattle. His abandoned horse was found fully saddled on the Forest Service Road northwest of the city 2 days later. Police said Ben was last seen at 2 p.m., but it's unknown when he rode into the backcountry or where he was heading. Search and rescue teams scoured the area. Even after this extensive search, Ben has never been found. Sun Peaks Resort is an alpine ski resort located in Sun Peaks, British Columbia, Canada, 56 kilometers northeast of Kamloops. The resort has 16 square kilometers of skiable terrain and received an average of 18 feet of snow per year. There are 137 runs. The ski area comprises 3 mountains: Todd Mountain, Sundance Mountain, and Mount Morrissey. 20-year-old Ryan Shuka was a seasonal worker from Beaumont, Alberta, and was working as a lift operator at the Sun Peaks Resort. He came to Sun Peaks on December 1, 2017 to spend the season snowboarding. He was 6 feet tall, weighed 180 pounds, with blonde hair and brown eyes. He was last seen wearing dark jeans, a gray and white shirt, a blue coat, and a burgundy-colored baseball cap. After leaving a house party on Burfield Drive in Sun Peaks at around 2:10 a.m. on February 17, 2018, British Columbia, and Canada, it was believed that Ryan was planning to walk the short distance to his home from the party at Burfield Drive in Sun Peaks. It was unclear how intoxicated he was by the alcohol he drank at the party. When he didn't show up to work later that day, friends became concerned. That night, his parents, Heather and Scott Shuka, received a text message from Ryan's roommate, and they reported him missing to the authorities. The search manager believes that the chances of finding Ryan alive were slim to none based on the cold temperatures, which is around -20°C that night. Initial searchers focused on the area between the party Ryan left the night he went missing and the house he was living at. Over the course of the next few months, police utilized the RCMP helicopter, dog teams, and dive teams to aid in search efforts, but nothing was found. The family did an initial search of the area in 2018, but they began to explore the region in a more methodical way during the period from April 19th, with excavators and bobcats to move snow and volunteers performing a grid search, but nothing was found. While the investigation to Shuka's disappearance remains open, the lack of clues and perception by some of that, the RCMP has not put an effort into finding Ryan and has sparked wild speculation. Since his disappearance, hundreds of volunteers from Alberta and British Columbia, along with local search and rescue teams and the RCMP, searched the village and surrounding forests, trails, and mountains looking for anything, but nothing has turned up. The initial theory from search and rescue teams was that Shuka had fallen into the gully, which was covered with heavy snow later that weekend, but when the snow melted after the winter, no sign of him was found. Jim Reed, who was staying with friends near the house where Ryan lived on the night the 20-year-old went missing, told CBC he heard an unusual interaction outside in the middle of the night. He said he heard a guy's voice and it was mad. The person he heard was yelling, "Get in the car, get in the effing car." Reed said he reported what he heard to the police. Speculation insists that most likely a homicide, not just a missing person. Although after extensive interviews with everyone involved with Ryan's disappearance, police said that they have no reason to believe foul play was involved. But some residents of the resort remain skeptical of that narrative. Ryan's parents, Heather and Scott, spent 4 months searching Sun Peaks and the area around the town. Heather Shuka finds it improbable that her son met a violent end. He's not confrontational. He's not an instigator. He's not one of those people that would go out of his way to start something. We don't know why Ryan went missing. We don't know how he went missing. We don't know where he went missing. We want to believe that we'll find him, that a parent's love will be so strong. A possible sighting led Shukas to believe their son may have walked toward the resort center for something to eat. The witness was sober and had an exact time for the sighting. Despite the inches of snow that had fallen from the time Ryan went missing, any tracks left behind him would still be obvious, yet none were found. It is a strange case, given neither the family nor the RCMP have turned up any sign of Ryan in over 3 years. Sniffer dogs detected no scent trail, there are no footprints in the snow, and no sign of a body, clothing, or blood once the snow had melted in the area. Was he picked up in a car and driven off, or wandered into the woods never to be seen again? Was he hit by a hit-and-run driver and the body was dumped out of town? Did someone at the party have a grievance? Hopefully the family will find some peace one day soon, if the remains are found. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Catherine and this is Canadian Coffeehouse Crime, video number 39 on October 31st, 2023. Please feel free to press the like button as it helps with my exposure and subscribe to my channel. I try to put out a new video every week. See you in the next case.